Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. So some people were asking me about my Spark Archmage Stormweaver build. So I'm gonna do an overview. This is not a guide. I'm just giving you tips about playing it. So I'm not gonna actually give like leveling tips and stuff because I just leveled once. I don't know much about leveling and low budget items. I'm just gonna give you what I have. So for wands, we want at least +4. +5 will be better, but I don't have it. I couldn't craft it yet, and there is none on market that I could buy. And the second important mod is the cast speed. So these two should be as high as possible. It should be at least +4 levels, and then it should have cast speed. And then the rest of the mods is like good if you have, doesn't matter if you don't. Some as extra, some spell damage, more mana would be nice. For suffixes, you can get intelligence, you can get mana regen, and stuff like that. So for Helm, we want as much energy shield and mana as possible. For prefixes, this also works for the gloves and boots. And for suffixes, we want intelligence and res, intelligence and res, intelligence and res, and of course we want movement speed on boots. For shield, +2 all level is very important. Each level gives you like 12.5% more damage. So +2 means 25% more damage just as one mod. So it's very important. Second important mod is the cast speed. So these two should exist on your shield for sure. And rest of the mods, the prefixes, you want as much as energy shield as possible. The third prefix can be lightning damage, spell damage, mana. All three are good. I don't have it yet. I want to buy one, but they're also expensive. So I'm just live searching it at the moment. And for the last suffix, you can get resistance, mana regen, and intelligence. The belt is ingenuity. So for rare belts, we can't get much on them because they don't roll intelligence. The prefixes only have mana, and suffixes only have resists that you care about. You don't care about the other prefixes, you don't care about the implicits. So this belt solves that. This belt gives you maximum ring effect, and you can get a lot of good mods on rings. For example, you can on prefixes you can get rarity, you can get lightning damage, you can get mana. The implicits are very good as well. You can get resist on them, you can get cast speed, rarity, mana. You can use a bridge ring to increase the other modifiers as well. And for the suffixes, we want cast speed for sure. Cast speed is very, very important for your damage. And for the other suffixes, you want intelligence and resist. If you can cap your resist without the intelligence, you can just get additional resist instead of intelligence on your every slot. The amulet is everlasting gaze. I mean, for my setup, this is non-negotiable because it gives all of my energy shield. The anoint is lightning rod, so this is a very expensive anoint. It's like 500 exalts. It makes all of your non-crits lucky, and we have no crit on 3, and I'm using controlled destruction, so every hit I do is non-crit, so it's lucky. Lucky means it chooses 2 damage numbers, so you see the range here. Instead of choosing 1 number and dealing damage, it chooses 2 numbers and it picks the higher number to do the damage, and this is like 30% more damage on average. And if you are poor, if you don't have the money, you can get piercing shot, whatever that is. This piercing shot is pretty cheap. This gives you 50% pierce chance, and with the rest of the jewels on emeralds, you can roll pierce chance. So by using 3 of them, you can cap your pierce. I changed my anoint to lightning rod, so I don't have 50% pierce from there. So I have to use 5 emeralds with high pierce chance on all of them. Optimally, it would be 20 each for 100%, but currently I have 84. So I want to make this 100% for pierce. Pierce is very good. It helps you with narrow corridors. The pierce lets spark projectiles pass through mobs and hit the ones on the back. And it also on bosses, as far as I know, you cast spark, the projectile hits the boss, pierces the boss, bounces back, hits boss again. So it's helpful on the boss DPS as well. That's anoint. Don't forget catalyst, your rings and amulets, by the way. And body armor, you want as much energy shield as possible. I also got spirit online, so at least 40 spirit would be very good, so you can open green feast. This makes monsters drop energy shield remnants, and you can collect these remnants to overcap your energy shield. So for example, I have almost 6k energy shield, and when I kill monsters, I pick up these remnants, and this can go up to 12k energy shield, so it can double up your energy shield with the green fizz. And for the 10 spirit, I'm using clarity for some extra mana regen. For the suffixes on body armor, you can get reduced ignite duration. Ignite is very dangerous for this build because the ignite prevents your energy from recharging, and all of our energy shield sustain comes from recharge. So reduced ignite duration would be very good. I mean, it's not mandatory by any means. And for the other ones, you can get intelligence, you can get resist, as always. I think that's about it. With the items, I'm using a freeze charm because I have stun threshold on my tree. I'm not getting stunned, so I'm using a freeze charm. That's it. Let's go over 3. So for ascendancy, I'm taking arcane surge. I'm taking shock, double shock, and I am using some shock magnitude on my jewels and tree. I can go over them in a second to boost this shock, because every shock magnitude or ailment magnitude that you get gets double dipped because you are using 2 shocks. So it's very good node. I am currently applying 39%, I believe, shock, and this doubles that. So instead of 39, I'm getting 78% shock, like increased damage on the mob. This is very good. And for the last node, I took exposure. So this doesn't actually give you minus 20 res. It increases the implicit resistance of the exposure. So this actually double dips the exposure effect as well, similar to shock. So for example, let's say, so I took this node, right? It gives 25% lightning exposure effect. And normally lightning exposure gives minus 20 res. So 25% of that is 5. So instead of 20, you get 25. But if you take this, your exposure gives minus 40. So the 25% of that is 10. So instead of 40, you get 50. So you see what I mean? The exposure chance, increased exposure effect you get actually gets doubled effect as well. So this is a very good node. I am also using exposure effect on my gems, so this is very good. So we pass through here. We take some energy shield stuff here, some mana stuff. We go through mana regen. You can get cast speed here as well, but I have so much cast speed from the belt, from the rings, from weapon, from the shield. This doesn't give me much. And also keep in mind that every cast speed you get increases the mana spending. Like you cast more, so you spend mana more. So you gotta balance mana regen with cast speed. Currently, I am not really like spending that much mana. If I put Orb of Storms, I get a little bit more. So my mana is good. You gotta balance that. And then we go through here. So instead of going through here, you can link through here. But instead of spending 2 points here, I'm spending 4 points here to get some increased damage. Like 8, 16, 26, and 44, I think. Yeah, 44 and some increased chance to shock. For 2 points, I think this is very worth it. And then we go here, we get some energy recharge. We get some duration here and here. So duration is actually damage multiplier for Spark, because if your Spark's projectiles live longer, they can bounce off walls and come hit again. And it also helps a little bit with the clear, because if they can't live long enough to hit the mob on the edge of your screen, then there is no point, right? So increased duration is very good, especially for like 3 points. And we get 3 points here. And then we take some energy shield stuff here and take a jewel socket. We go here, we take some energy shield stuff here, we take a jewel socket. I am taking 2 dex notes here because I have some dex gems that I use, and I need dex for that. We get here, we get some damage, we get some res, and for here it gives us 30% shock effect and 10% shock duration. And shock duration is actually kinda good because this gives us 50% less. So our shocks last 2 seconds instead of 4 seconds, so this mitigates some of that. I am taking Mind Over Matter because I have good enough regen that I can sustain it. And I'm also taking Eldritch Battery to turn all of my energy shield from my gear into mana. And keep in mind that this node doesn't work with EB, because EB works first, it converts all of your energy shield into mana, and then this node tries to work, but your helmet doesn't have energy shield anymore, so it doesn't do anything, so don't take it. We get some faster energy recharge. So faster energy recharge is actually very important because it's all I have, like to regain my energy shield. So these nodes are not like nothing to sleep on. You really need those. I think I have 220. Yeah, okay. I have 220%. So instead of 4 seconds, I have like 1.5 seconds, something like that. of my energy shield recharge. We get some arcane surge effect here. Gives us cast speed, gives us mana regen. We get jewel socket here. We get some max res and energy shield here. This gives us energy shield, mana, and stun threshold. So you need some threshold at least. You get some from here, and then some from here, and it's enough. I don't get stunned at all, like unless I'm standing inside like 20 mobs. This is enough. I mean, if you want, you can get some from here as well. If you are feeling you are getting stunned, you can get there. You can get there. It's okay. Another jewel socket here. We get some damage from here per 10 int. I have 270, 370. We get some pan here. So pan is actually kind of useless because you're using conductivity, you're using exposure. So and pan cannot go negative. So it is kind of a waste on bosses, which you use conductivity and exposure on. But for maps with elemental resist, pan is actually really good because you're not using your curse and exposure on normal and magic mobs. So this pan is actually valuable on those mobs. And increased exposure effect is always nice. We get some ES here, we get some int here for mana. We get some mana here, we get some regen here, we get some damage here. We take EB, we take duration, we take projectile speed. Projectile speed is also very important for Spark because it can like off-screen mobs because it is traveling so long that it can hit mobs off-screen. And for bosses, when you're spamming it, the faster it is, the faster it can hit something and bounce back to hit again. So it is very good for 3 points. Some energy recharge shift here, and some we take CI of course to become chaos immune because we cannot like it's just free. We have so much ES. So since we are mob, the mobs first hit our energy shield, and if our energy shield reaches 0, then they start hitting mana, then we die if we spend all of them. For jewels, my suggestion would be high percent chance to pierce enemy, like 18 to 20, and then you want a magnitude of shock because we are double dipping with the ascendancy. So those are the 2 important mods. And then on the 3rd mod, you can get projectile damage, you can get lightning damage, you can get elemental damage, stuff like that. If you are very rich or if you are very lucky, you can get a 4th mod. So for example, this one is elemental ailment threshold. So I get frozen less often, chill less often, ignite less often. This one gives debuff expire faster. It's not that important, but it's good that it's a valuable 4th mod. And this is the tree. And if you notice, some of those are weapon set 1 passives, because on my 2nd weapon set, I'm taking all the curse stuff to make my curse stronger, and I'm casting my curse on the weapon swap as well. These are the weapon swap nodes. And okay, so gems. So Sigil of Power on your weapon swap. Use a chiming staff. This gives shitload of damage. Buy one with at least +3 to all spell skills. Because this makes Sigil of Power instead of 18, it becomes 21, and at 21 it gives 15% more spell damage per stage. So you cast it. If you quality the stuff, it actually gives quality to Sigil of Power, so it gains more radius as well. So keep that in mind. So it's a very big AoE with magnified effect. I don't think this works, but I'm using it anyway. So this gives AoE, and then you can swap back. And when you are spending your mana, which you are because you're an Archmage, this Sigil of Power stacks goes up, and at 4 stacks it gives you 60% more damage. So that is very good. And it's just free damage. I'm not using this while clearing, of course. I'm only using it for bosses. Like I'm just pre-casting it before I go into a boss, and then I fight inside the circle. For Spark, don't forget to quality it. Qualities matter as well. It gives 4 projectiles. So I'm using Arcane Temple for more cast speed. Simple. I'm using Control Destruction. Because I'm not taking any crit on 3 or items, it's 9% crit chance, which isn't a lot. But it gives us shitload of damage. And I'm also taking Lightning Rod to make my non-crits lucky, so that's very good. I'm using Inspiration, otherwise you cannot really sustain your mana. I'm using Acceleration for more projectile speed. And I'm using Considered Casting. So this got buffed last patch. It used to be 10% less cast speed, 25% more damage. It's even better now. It gives us 19% more damage on average. And it doesn't have like a mana cost multiplier, so it's very good. And on top of that, because it gives less cast speed, it actually helps with your mana. Because you're casting less, you're spending your mana less. So this is very good. Use this. For Orb of Storms, you're using Conduction because we want it to shock. Why do we want it to shock? Because when it shocks, it applies an exposure. So these are very good. We are using a strip away to boost that exposure effect, and we are using font of mana to give us some mana regen when we are in it. We're using conductivity with focused curse and hidden curse to just give some curse effect. I'm using weapon swap to cast this to benefit from all the curse effect and curse duration and all the reduced delay. We're using Archmage, of course. For Archmage, keep in mind the quality gives 2%. The 21 gem gives 1% as well, like it adds 1%. So to do this, you can get a 20 level uncut gem, uncut spirit gem, get an Archmage, and then put a +1 lightning master gem to get it to 21. Mana Tempest, I'm not really using this anymore. If you quality it, so if you cast it and leave it, it still lingers on you for 1 second, so that's decent. But if you stand in it and cast, it's gonna drain your mana like very fast. And since I'm a mind over matter build, and I don't really have a lot of mana regen, I'm like barely sustaining. So I don't really use this often. But if you are using it, you can use it with premeditation to run up some extra more damage. I don't have the strength for it, so I'm not using it in this current setup. I'm using blink on my weapon swap to some swap like when I'm just running and not fighting mobs, like when I'm backtracking in maps. I'm using this to dash, like to add blink to my dash. And then we have Green Feast. Green Feast, like I said before, you kill monster, they drop remnants. You take remnants, you go to like 12k ES, and I added clarity for this for some extra mana regen. And the weapon swap tech that I found out recently from a friend. So you add 2 skeletal clerics to your weapon swap, and then you use Soul Offering with Persistence, Ablaton, and Danse Macabre, whatever that is. So when you're casting Spark, you press F or whatever key you bound, Soul Offering, you swap back, and then you press it again to kill the skeletons, and then when you start casting your Spark, for 11 seconds you have 60% more damage. So that's very good. Combined with Sigil of Power, you can like cast the Sigil of Power, kill the skeletons, then swap back on bosses for some extra damage. Not even like some extra damage, it's a shit ton of damage. That's the tech. I can't use these 2 gems because I'm not really mapping with this setup. I'm killing bosses with this setup. I have like 95k, and with all the buffs I have like 270k damage. For mapping, I'm using a Rarity setup with Rarity Rings, Rarity Mana, Res, Rarity Cast Speed Mana, and Strength. So this is Strength lets me equip the shield that gives shit ton of rarity, and it also lets me equip Persistence on my Soul Offering, and lets me equip Premeditation on Mana Tempest. Not that it matters, I'm not really using it. With this setup, with this Rarity setup, I have 409 rarity. So this is what I'm mapping with. I think that's all. I talked about items, I talked about tree, talked about gems, I talked about gameplay. So one trick that I can give you if you're not familiar with it. So when you're casting, your character slows down, right? This is a feature of the game. However, if you, instead of holding the button, if you just cast it, like if you click your right click, it doesn't actually slow you down. Like if you spam it, it will slow you down. But if you click like, I don't know, 1 time a second, 2 times a second, it's not actually slowing you down. You see my movement speed? Like this is normal me walking without casting, and this is me with casting. So I'm not actually slowing down at all, and this is how I'm mapping. I'm just pre-casting. I'm just casting all the time. My projectiles go everywhere. They kill mobs off screen without me even seeing them. So this is very good tech. It doesn't slow you down. You should use this. I talked about the weapon swap tech as well. That's about it. Well, have fun with the build, I guess.